Hey everybody, what's going on? Nexius here. Finally, I have beta. I did not make it into alpha, and honestly, that's perfectly fine. As long as I got some kind of early access, so I could give you guys a ton of content, exactly like Windwalker stuff, before the expansion actually releases. That was my main concern. So now that I have beta, we are first going to look at the Windwalker Monk changes. So I did set up a little bit here, as you guys can see, with my action bars, my keybinds, my macros, because I want to show you guys here what the class looks like going into Legion with pruning or changes like that. So as you guys can really see here with all of the Hearthstones, what that means is ignore those bars. Those are my mounts, my professions, things like that, my buffs, certain things like that, nothing to do with the class at all, really. So if you see the Hearthstones on the bar, that just means ignore that. Everything else is related to the class of what I use in Legion currently, such as my Paralysis macros or my Transcendence, all that different stuff. So what we're going to take a look at here is some of the new talents. We'll also look at what's been removed at the top of my head that I can remember. Certain changes like spinning crane kick, other things like that. So we're going to start off with the pruning. So we do have energizing elixir still, so I guess I should technically throw this on the bar here. But as you guys can see, healing elixir no longer is in the game. So my S bar here is actually gone. Fortifying brew, we don't have honor talents here, so I don't know if that's coming back. Actually, I know it is, because I remember seeing in the data mine there was an azerite effect, as you guys can see here. There is an actual azerite effect that hits Fortifying Brew. When you are using Fortifying Brew, you are also healing yourself over time, so that's kind of cool. Not only do you get damage reduction, but you'll heal a little bit as you use Fortifying Brew. So I know Fortifying Brew is still here. I think it's an honor talent still. So besides healing elixir, and I think that's really it. What do I have here? Oh, nothing there. What? Oh, okay, so that's just an empty bar. So as far as I can see, it's really just healing elixir. I think that's been removed. A little bit of healing as well, such as the artifact traits, as many of you guys know. Strike of the Windlord, since we don't have our artifact weapon, that's actually technically gone, so you guys can see here. It's actually not there anymore, so no more Strike of the Windlord, no more healing elixir. For the most part, everything else has been the same. We haven't actually lost too much. So we're going to take a look here at the basic abilities. Let's get rid of our talents here. We want to pick up all the passives. This is a cool little organization thing that Blizzard has done. All of the passives in the tree are on the left side, so it makes it much easier to switch out. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is because I want to show you guys what our abilities are baseline. So we still have Blackout Kick. You guys can see here that whenever you Blackout Kick, it reduces the cooldown of Rising Sun Kick and Fists of Fury by 1 second every time you use it. So now, compared to Legion, Blackout Kick just did damage, but now there's actual use for it. You will get your Fist of Fury and your Rising Sun Kick much more often. On top of that, they are still reduced by haste, so overall, this is just amazing. I love this. More Rising Sun Kicks, more Fist of Furies. You know what? Can't ask for more. That's awesome. I love pressing abilities, and it's cool. Now, we still have Crackling Jade Lightning. Nothing's really changed there. Detox, we still have that. Disable, still have that. Fist of Fury, let's take a look. Any changes? Does not look like it. 3 Chi, still channels. Oh, there is one, actually. So in Legion, Fist of Fury does 100% damage to everything in range. In Warlords of Draenor, your target takes 100% damage, and every other target takes 50% damage. So it's gone back to the Warlords of Draenor version, if you guys played Windwalker Monk back then. So when you use it on a target, they will take full damage, and every other target around them will just take half. So pretty interesting. To go back to that, I think it is a good change. There was way too much AoE/cleave damage in Legion, especially in PvP. So I think it's overall a good change for the game. Flying Serpent Kick is still the same. Leg Sweep, this is now baseline. This is no longer a talent. The talent here is instead, it will reduce the cooldown by 10 seconds, and it will increase the range. Now, if you have played a Windwalker as long as you will know there are some moments where you will actually be on the target, but Leg Sweep will not hit them. So to have this talent is going to be quite useful. The extra 2 yards will allow us to hit them more often. Sometimes the hitbox is a little bit weird. Disable has that history as well, but the fact that Leg Sweep will no longer have that issue if you're talented here, That's pretty cool. Now, the cooldown reduction might seem really, really good, but keep in mind that the baseline cooldown has gone to 1 minute, as you guys can see here. So leg sweep, even though it is baseline, now has a 1 minute cooldown instead of 45 seconds, and the stun is 3 seconds instead of 5. So very cool that it's baseline. Unfortunately, it did get nerfed. I think it's a good change. I just like playing Monk. I like the leg sweep. It's always been ever since 2012. Now it's finally getting a change, and you know what? We'll have to see how it plays out. I don't want to complain right away. I don't want to complain about every nerf. I just want to say we'll have to see how it plays out in PvP when we can test it. But that's what it is now. It's baseline. So pretty cool. Paralysis, the cooldown has gone to 45 seconds, up from 15. This is a very big nerf, and the reason why is because in previous expansions, you would be able to use it for setups. So long story short, paralysis into a leg sweep into a Fist of Fury. The paralysis, you could do that, right? That was your setup. As a Windwalker monk, your setup was paralysis into Fist of Fury. Your healer will say go fear after the paralysis. But now, you can't do that every 15 seconds. You can't even do it every Fist of Fury like you can currently in Legion. So not only can you not use it every Fist of Fury, but on top of that, if you use it like that, you won't have it defensively. So currently in Legion, if I use it in a setup with Fist of Fury, and then suddenly the enemy team decides to burst, I could, in 15 seconds, use paralysis on them to stop some of their pressure. It's going to be a lot harder to do that now because it's on a 45-second cooldown. It's almost going to be never used defensively, I think, because you want to save the 45 seconds for every go. So it's a pretty big deal, paralysis being nerfed like that. The provoke is the same as always. Rising Sun Kick looks to be the same. 2 chi, damage, I believe same 10-second cooldown for haste and everything, just like Legion, so everything seems to be the same. Roll, same thing. Let's go down to Spear Hand Strike. Looks to be the same thing. Spinning Crane Kick, it's now 2 chi instead of 3. Personally, I think this is an amazing change. I think it really is great to have it on 2. I get a lot more Spinning Crane Kicks out. It feels really good. Now, on top of this, you guys can also see that for every target with Mark of the Crane, it's only a 10% increase per mark, not 40% like it is currently in Legion. So they have drastically nerfed the AoE spike in terms of damage with Mark of the Crane, but you know what, for gameplay, I don't mind that at all, especially if they did compensate with baseline damage to Spinning Crane Kick. I don't mind the change overall. I think it's good. Now, we do have Storm, Earth, and Fire. You can see here it's 2 charges still, 1.5 minutes. So without the artifact traits, that made it, I believe, 1.16 or 1.17 minutes. It's something like that. It's gone back to 1.5 here since the artifact traits are no longer available now that Legion is over. One other change as well is it does go on the global cooldown, as you guys can see right here. Very short global cooldown right there. So it is on the global cooldown now. I don't know about Serenity. I do want to check that out. Okay, it's a very fast one. It's not going to be that impactful. It's not that big of a deal. So there is a bit of a global cooldown. Now the question is, can we use Serenity off the global cooldown? So I will check that out afterwards here. Now let's see, what else do we have here? Tiger Palm. Oh wait, where do we go? Where do we go? Spear Hand, we did that. Spinning Crank. Tiger Palm, yes. So attack with Tiger Palm, it's the same. 50 energy, generates 2 chi with the 8% Blackout Kick effect. I believe it was called Combo Breaker. Touch of Death is still the same, so you inflict damage to the target equal to half your health, reduce damage against players, of course. Now, the artifact trait where during the countdown, all of your damage will be dealt to the target. So, what was it called? I think it was Death Art in the artifact tree. That is now baseline, so we have that, as you guys can see there. So, baseline right there, artifact trait. Touch of Karma. All damage is redirected, as always. 1.5 minute cooldown, 20-yard range, as always. As you guys can see, it's still 50%. Now, this one I'm a little bit scared of because the artifact trait that we had where any damage we take would heal us, we don't know if that's going to come back as an azerite trait or what. So, right now, by itself, before we see that, it's not looking good defensively with Touch of Karma. Every time we've had it at 50%, it's been absolutely terrible. The only reason it worked out in Legion is because it had another effect, which made us heal. So when we did use it and we absorbed some damage, well, it was perfectly fine. But as you guys can see, it's still 50%, not 100%. So hopefully they have some kind of trait or talent or something that's coming so we can get some other benefit here, whether it's 100% like the set bonus we had in Warlords of Draenor, or baseline like it was in Mob, or the heal from the artifact trait. We'll have to see. So I'm a little bit worried about that. For Transcendence, it's the same as always. Transfer, on the other hand, has been nerfed. It's now a 20-second increase to 45 seconds, so we cannot Transcendence as much as we used to. Now, this is a big survival nerf, because what I would do is anytime somebody would go me in some kind of setup, I would instantly Transcendence. And if I'm behind a pillar, they can't Chaos Bolt me, they can't Ebon Bolt me, they can't do anything. And what this does is it allows me to save Karma, basically. So by the time I come out of the pillar, my healer is out of CC. So I don't have to Karma, nothing like that. So I don't take damage when I Transcendence like this. And the fact I can do that every 25 seconds since 2012 has been absolutely amazing. So to see it go to 45 does make me sad, because it was extremely strong. So the nerf does make sense, but when you've had the same certain stats on an ability for 5-6 years, it's just weird to see it changed all of a sudden. It's always been 25, so that's kind of weird. Vivify is just a fuse. It's just been name changed. They always change it. In Warlords, it was Surging Mist. In Legion, it was a fuse. And now in BFA, it's Vivify. Now, Vivify, it's hard to say because this is beta. I'm level 110, not 120, and I'm also in beginner's gear, right? So, like, simple 185 gear. So, I don't know how good Vivify will be. But currently, as we stand here in this video, it heals me for about 10 to 8% of my health. 8 to 10% of my health. It's a lot. So, especially if you critically strike, it's a lot. So, if there's a way I can take damage, I'll actually head over here. And I'll take some damage in a second, so I'll look that up in a second here. So what else do we have? We have Zen Pilgrimage, same as always. It takes us to Peak of Serenity. It does not take us to the Order Hall, so the Order Hall is gone. Let's test Vivify real quick here. So there's my 44% health, 54, 64, so you can see it's roughly 9 to 10% per cast. This is a huge increase compared to now, which is 1% per cast, not even with templates, so we'll have to see how powerful it gets towards the release of BFA. But right now, it's incredibly strong. 10% per cast is a lot. I would even say overpowered. However, we haven't seen artifact traits and whatnot yet. 10% per cast doesn't seem so overpowered when you consider we don't have Expel Harm, we don't have Tiger Eye Brew healing, we don't have Chi Torpedo healing. What else are we missing? Healing elixirs, we're missing a lot of healing. In Legion, we had an artifact trait where every time we would Transcendence, like this, our transfer would heal us for 25% of our health over 6 seconds. That's a lot of health. It's percentage based. It's a lot of health in PvP. So we lost every essence of our healing, basically, aside from Vivify. So we'll have to see if it's going to be okay to have this or what's going to happen. So that's what we're looking at right now. I'm a little bit worried because even though it's 10%, I know it's going to get nerfed. To see it at 10% per cast, I don't see it happening at release. If it does happen at release, it's going to get nerfed. I just know it's going to be. And that's going to worry me because we have no other source of healing, whether that's healing elixirs or Transcendence transfer with the trait or what's going on. So we'll have to see what our Azerite traits and honor talents look like when we go further into the process of beta. If we get any more healing out of that, we'll be a lot better. Because if we don't have that, we need to be tanky in some kind of way. There's no way we can stand toe-to-toe currently in Legion without running away. That's the only reason we actually survive compared to other classes, is because we can run away effectively. Well, that's getting a lot of nerfs going into BFA. Whether that's Transcendence Transfer on almost twice the cooldown. 50 is twice, but it's at 45, so it's almost double the cooldown. What else are we missing? Healing elixirs, we are missing Transcendence Transfer. Healing trait, we're missing quite a lot of healing and mobility in that sense. So to mitigate damage is what I'm talking about here. To mitigate damage, a lot of it has been nerfed, so I am a little bit worried about our durability. If we can't run away and self-heal as much, we're just going to flop, right? So we'll have to see how that goes. Now, finally, we do have Afterlife. It's the same as always, no different. Whenever you kill an enemy, especially with Blackout Kick, you either get a Chi Orb or some healing, so that's pretty good while leveling. Inner Strength, this is actually a talent here. Let's get rid of that. Actually, let's put it back. It's going to confuse you guys, I think. Let's move on. Mastery here, it's staying the same in BFA. 39% damage here based off doing different abilities. This is a new passive here. Any damage we deal causes the target to take 5% more physical damage, so a lot of raids out there will be having at least one Windwalker monk for this talent, or this passive I mean. So that's going to be pretty cool. We have a bit of raid utility. I remember around BlizzCon, they did mention that we would get Legacy of the Emperor and Legacy of the White Tiger. If you guys remember, those were old buffs that would give ourselves and our party members 5% stats and 5% critical strike. But it looks like they changed their mind on that, and we actually don't have that. So that's what the baseline abilities and passives are looking like. In terms of the talents, we have the same stuff here. I have the Tiger, Chi Wave, Chi Burst. Now, the difference with Chi Burst is you guys look at the bottom there. For every target that gets hit by Chi Burst, we generate 1 Chi. So, currently, the go-to talent is probably going to be Chi Burst here. I'm seeing everyone using it. It's definitely going to be the best here with the Chi generation. And a little bit of burst damage and healing as well. Doesn't hurt. In Legion, currently, all 3 are basically the same. You can go whatever you want. But with the Chi generation off this, it's definitely really good. I did a bunch of AoE areas, like I was grinding mobs in some of the scenarios, like the Battle for Lordaeron and stuff like that, and I was getting a lot of Chi between Chi Burst and other talents, so the Chi generation is really, really good right now, currently, with beta. I don't know how it is at 120. Hopefully I get there at some point, and then we can check it out, see where the state of Windwalker is with that. But currently, right now, Chi Burst, generating 1 Chi. I think this is absolutely amazing. I love Chi Burst. I think it's one of those iconic monk abilities where, you know, it's like the Kamehameha from Dragon Ball Z, right? It's awesome. It's cool. So I love to see it getting buffed in this sense. Probably going to be #1 use. Now, in the second tier here, Tiger's Lust is no longer here. It's actually down here. So Healing Elixir has been taken away and replaced by Tiger's Lust. And we have Diffuse Magic moved over here and replaced by Inner Strength. So what we have here is we can stack a lot of mobility, right? Celerity and Chi Torpedo have not been changed. Diffuse Magic has not been changed. They only have been moved around. So no more Tiger's Lust here. So if you want some kind of survival, like Inner Strength, which gives you damage reduction for every time you spend Chi, you're going to have to sacrifice defensive utility if you want mobility. So you can stack mobility here with Celerity or Chi Torpedo and Tiger's Lust. Or if you want to go full defensive, you can go Dampen Harm and Diffuse Magic. Get yourselves 2 extra defensives here. So that's kind of interesting. Personally, I don't really like it. I think it's kind of weird that we can stack so many defensive cooldowns. I don't know why it's weird. I really think, you know, Diffuse Magic should be down here. Tiger's Lust should be there. And I think Inner Strength is cool. What I think they should do is take away Dampen Harm. Maybe Diffuse Magic, I would say Dampen Harm. Take away that and instead put Healing Elixir there. But either way, I just think Tiger's Lust should be on this tier. It just seems weird, really weird that we have to sacrifice a root clear in order to get some defensive out. Diffuse Magic is only magic, so I don't really count it full defensive. If you're facing like a Warrior, Death Knight, or something like that, like Diffuse Magic isn't the best there, right? So you have to go Inner Strength, and now you don't have Tiger's Lust. So I'm not a big fan of moving mobility around like that, but we'll have to see how it goes. This is my feedback to Blizzard, so I don't think they'll ever change it, especially with my opinions, but just my thoughts there on the talent tiers there. So now we get to move over here to the third tier. I like this tier. As you guys can see, Power Strikes has been moved down, and instead of having Power Strikes here, we have Fist of the White Tiger. This is basically Strike of the Windlord. It just does less damage. So 30-second cooldown instead of 40. It costs energy instead of Chi, and it generates 3 Chi. So it's an amazing Chi generator. I had a lot of fun using it when I first got onto the beta, so it's pretty cool. It's a lot of fun. I currently have it here as my new artifact weapon place. So if you like using extra abilities, I recommend that. Energizing Elixir has been nerfed. It only generates 2 Chi instead of full Chi. And the most important part, in my opinion, is it's now on the global cooldown. So you can't just pop it and use Fist of Fury right away, which can really mess up your burst in both PvP and PvE. So not a big fan of the global cooldown change, but it is important to note that it kind of ruins the burst aspect of Energizing Elixir. So for me personally, I don't care how strong it is, even if these two suck. I'm going to run Fist of the White Tiger. It's a lot more fun to use. It fits in the rotation. It's cool. So I'm never going to touch this ability again. Ascension has been buffed. As you guys can see, one of the artifact traits that we had would give us maximum energy, and if you pick Ascension now, it not only gives you the 1 chi and the energy regeneration, but it also gives you the maximum energy as well. So that artifact trait has become baseline into a talent, as you guys can see. Now for this talent here, I kind of touched a little bit on Tiger Tail Sweep. Leg Sweep is now baseline, as you guys can see, and Tiger Tail Sweep will buff it. So if you want a lower cooldown and you want some extra range on it, you can run that. Ox Statue is staying. Honestly, I like this talent for running old raids and farming stuff. So I actually like this staying. Would have been cool if it was baseline instead, but seriously, I actually like this ability. So to see it still around is not that big of a deal because, let's be honest here, everyone always picked Leg Sweep anyway. So picking up other talents isn't really going to be competitive. So at least there is some kind of situation where Ox Statue is useful. And in the case of old raid running and old farming, which I do a lot, it's a cool talent. I'm glad it's returning. Ring of Peace is still here. I believe it still does the same thing. Enemies that enter will be ejected, so it is the same from Legion. It's still a talent. It is there. They did have it baseline in the alpha, but I guess they changed their mind on that, so it's a talent once again. So if I had to guess, we're probably running Tiger Tail Sweep all the time, and then we'll switch out occasionally depending on the situation. But for PvP, I'm pretty sure Tiger Tail Sweep is going to be the best. Ring of Peace, I can see some use out of it because 10 seconds isn't that big of a deal. It is a little bit, but you know, it's small enough to where you might be able to make a play with Ring of Peace. So I can see, for example, if you're playing Blade's Edge, you can Ring of Peace here since you will have Leg Sweep still since it's baseline. So I can see a Ring of Peace on the healer to knock them off the bridge, and then when they come around, you have Leg Sweep and stuff. So I can actually see that being played more often now in PvP, but we'll have to see. Next talent tier here, I did talk a little bit about it. Each T you spend reduces the damage taken by 2% for only 5 seconds, and it stacks up to 5 times. So what is that? Like 10% damage reduction at all times, assuming you're not running away. The minute you run away, you're basically going to lose it, so you have to be careful with that. Keep in mind each T you spend. So if you do a Sun Kick, you're going to get 2 stacks right away. Fist of Fury, 3 stacks. So it's pretty easy to get the stacks back up, but just keep in mind that you do lose it very quickly. At least this is one way that we can stay in combat longer. You just have to be careful because you can't kite as much, because the minute you stop attacking, you're just going to lose it right away. So be careful with that. Tiger's Lust is here, of course. As I mentioned, it did switch with Diffuse Magic. So if you want to stack mobility at the expense of survivability, durability, same thing, then you can choose to do that. For the 90 tier, hit combo only generates 1% increased damage, so it's no longer 2%. In PvP, it has always pretty much been 1% for most of the expansion, so in terms of PvP, this hasn't changed. In terms of PvE, you have been nerfed by 50% in this talent, so the other two might become more viable now. Rushing Jadewind no longer costs energy or chi and just goes off. This time it costs energy and it keeps costing every second, and once you're out of energy it stops. So there is no duration on it. It just sits on until you're out of energy, which is pretty quick to be honest if you're running it, but it's pretty cool. So we'll use it in a second. So you can see it just sits there, and it stays forever until you run out of energy. But I guess because I'm in a town, I have full energy at all times. So I have Rushing Jadewind forever, and honestly, that's pretty damn cool. It's cool, I just hope it doesn't make us energy starved at all times. I really don't see it being used. It costs way too much energy to be effective, so because of that, I don't see it being used. You'll never get to Tiger Pollen, basically. You're better off going Chi Burst and Whirling Dragon Punch, and you're like, that should be enough AoE, especially with Spinning Crane Kick, right? So I don't see Rushing Jadewind ever being used unless it's like a rare occasion where it's cool or you really like it, but other than that, I just don't see it being picked up, simply for that resource cost. Now, additionally, we have Zwen here. He also received a change. His cooldown is 2 minutes instead of 3. And you guys can see here also that he only lasts 20 seconds instead of 45. So this is pretty interesting. His uptime has been reduced by more than half, and his cooldown has also been reduced. So I'm kind of curious to how much damage he can do now, because in the previous expansions he has always been pretty mediocre, but because he lasts a lot less now, he can be more focused on burst windows. So I'm very curious to see his damage output. I hope it's a good amount. That's going to be really cool to see. Zwen do quite a lot of damage to people, even though he doesn't last as long. So pretty cool. The cooldown's also been reduced, so if it doesn't go too well, you don't have to wait forever to finally have him back up. So I definitely think Zwen is going to stand more of a chance after seeing Rushing Jadewind become kind of useless, honestly, and hit combo become nerfed by 50% in PvE. So kind of cool. And finally, we have Power Strikes moved over here and changed up a little bit. So in Legion, every 15 seconds, Tiger Palm will generate 1 additional chi. But now in BFA, it's also going to deal 200% more damage. I think this is way better than Chi Orbit. I'm glad they took that away. It's an annoying looking ability. I don't like it. I know some people think it looked cool. I just hate it, period. So Chi Orbit being gone, thank you. Awesome. So replaced by a more interesting talent, I guess. And we have Dragon Punch here, still around, same effect as always, so glad to see that here. Wish it was baseline now that Strike of the Windlord is gone. Would have been cool to see it baseline, but talent's a talent. And Serenity is here as well. Same effect, basically. Cooldowns are reduced by 50%. They just changed the wording. 40% damage, 1.5 minutes. Personally, I don't think this is going to be that useful. Mostly because you don't have too many chi spenders. It's just really Black Hole Kick, Rising Sun Kick, Spinning Crane Kick, and Fist of Fury. Actually, you know what? No, sorry, that's not true. That is not true. Ignore what I said because I just remembered Blackout Kick here. So Blackout Kick, right, will reduce the cooldown of your Fist of Fury and your Rising Sun Kick. So when you go in Sun Kick, Blackout Kick, not only do you have 50% reduced cooldown through Serenity, but you also get the cooldown reduction off Blackout Kick as well. So now I'm going to test that later with a target dummy. There's not one near me right now, but I'll test it later, and I'm going to see how cool Serenity is by reducing the cooldown of not only Fist of Fury and Sun Kick with Blackout Kick, but you also have Serenity going. So that's going to be pretty interesting. I cannot wait to test that out. So that's pretty cool. So overall, that's the talents and the abilities. One more thing I want to touch on, which is Storm, Earth, and Fire. It's the exact same as I mentioned earlier as Legion. I really don't like this. I would rather have Serenity or Tiger's Eye Brew baseline. I don't like Storm, Earth, and Fire. If it was a talent, or if it was, say, the old version from Warlords of Draenor, where you got to use it in certain situations, I would much prefer that. It had more skill cap to it. I don't like this current one. It's really weird in gameplay when you have to press it twice in PvP to make sure there's single target in your 1 second burst. It's annoying. I don't like this Storm, Earth, and Fire. So to see it still going the way it is, like, it's technically good for PvE, but for PvP, I just don't like the playstyle. I much prefer Serenity or Tiger Eye Brew. And we have Touch of Death, which is still the same from Legion. I don't like this. I think it's boring. I much prefer the old Execute one. It was much more satisfying using it that way. Much more unique. Even though I know Warriors do have Execute, Touch of Death went through certain defensives. It was unique in its own way. I like the old version. So current Touch of Death, current Storm, Earth, and Fire, don't really like them. Never did in Legion, but they're still pretty good abilities. So overall, that's my covering of the Windwalker Monk, both in talents and abilities, pruning, changes. If you guys have any questions, don't be afraid to leave any comments down below. Any feedback, discussion on the class, what you think so far. If you have any video suggestions on what you want to see in the beta, also leave that down below. Your feedback is important. On top of that, I will have a Discord link down below. So if you want to discuss beta, lore, any of that stuff, check out the Discord link and we'll talk about stuff. So thank you guys as always for watching. Hope you enjoyed the overview, and I'll see you next time.